how to be like, we have to maintain our body, we have to maintain the foods. So it is just like awareness. We have to be very careful about the diabetes. So nowadays, I don't think nobody is celebrating this November 14th as a diabetes day. I think we have to start now onwards. So among these diabetes, I have a problem with this actually. I have so totally out of this diabetic patients, so 91% of diabetes are type 2 diabetes. Okay, and 9% is type 1 diabetes. I'm not telling that extra thing. Only among the comparing the diabetes patients, 91% is type 2 diabetes and 9% is type 1 diabetes. Okay. So we have in the body we have so many cells. Okay, I think I'll be boring for biology people because they know everything actually.
No, sir.
I'm repeating the same thing. Okay, we have used millions of cells in our body. Okay, I'll be telling slowly because other teachers are there, they have to understand because they will be getting bored. So we have so many cells. What happens? So if you want to utilize the glucose, if you want to use the glucose, so we eat food. So whatever they eat, we eat food, no? So that will be digested by the enzyme called salivary amylase in the mouth itself. The part of the digested food is present in the body is called bolus. That will be entered into the esophagus and move to the stomach. In the stomach, we have HCl. Okay, HCl is an acid. So it will always try to digest the unwanted material and or even food also. And that will be moved to the small intestine. So in the small intestine, some sort of enzyme activity will be there. Okay, and that enzyme activity, the carbohydrate will be released to the monosaccharide, polysaccharide to monosaccharides. Okay, and even food also have toxic substances. So toxic means it's quite wondering actually. We don't know how the toxic substance will be carried out in the food. So nowadays we could see that so many pesticides sprayed on the foods or vegetables. That will not be, even if you wash also, that will never go. So that that chemical, even if you boil it, the functional group will be changed. Okay, that will indirectly we are taking into the stomach. Okay, and that will be caused as a toxic. You know, we believe it or not, nowadays we prepare the rice. We prepare the rice by using a pressure cooker. In the gasket also there is a plastic. That droplets will be entered into the rice. So indirectly we are taking so much of rice nowadays. See, so many people, even cancers also is developing because of this plastic we are taking indirectly. Okay, so these toxic substances and this glucose molecule and all this will be taken by the blood. You can see here, all these things will be taken by the blood. Okay, and that blood will be taken to the livers. Okay, once it is taken to the liver, so what happens? So some part of the, 60% of the glucose will be stored in the liver. Okay, so that is the part of this stored food material is called glycogen. Okay, so we call it as a glycogen. And remaining some 40% of the glucose will be stored in the muscle cells. Okay, this glucose molecule also will be stored in the muscle cells, and it's also called a glycogen. And I told you that whatever the toxic substance is released into the liver starts detoxifying. All the chemicals will be detoxified. It is made into the particles. Okay, it will be thrown. So it will be neutralized. So next what happens? Some amount of the glucose will be present in the blood only. So this glucose molecule should be utilized as an energy. Okay, so whatever we have energy, this is because of the glucose. So that glucose should be entered into the cell now. Okay, so next what will be the mechanism? So before going to the cell, I want to tell about the pancreas. Where does the pancreas see actually? So just below the stomach we have pancreas. Okay, this is a pancreas organ. It is made up of two glands. One is endocrine gland, another one is exocrine gland. Okay, so what does this endocrine gland do? Means like it secretes some, it has three types of cells. One is alpha cell, another one is beta cell, another one is delta cell. Okay, so alpha cell will secrete a hormone called glucagon. Okay, and beta cell will secrete a hormone called insulin, and delta cell secretes a hormone called somatostatin. Okay, and these hormones are directly released into the blood streams. Remember this. Okay, and this another part of exocrine gland is there. No? This gland has secretes some digestive enzymes like chymotrypsin, trypsin. So many enzymes are there to digest things. Okay, so that will be released directly into the duodenum. Okay, so this is a major function here. So we have to look after the insulin now. Insulin is the major part taking place here. Okay, and next one is, so pancreas is releasing the insulin. Okay, that insulin will enter into the blood streams. Wherever the blood is flowing, it will enter into the blood streams. So what happens? This before the glucose enter into the cell, this insulin will go and bind to the receptors of the cells. You know what is receptors? Because receptor means every cell has a particular receptors. So not even single cell will take a foreign material easily. Okay, suppose if you are coming inside the campus, we have a security. Okay, I am just giving an example. They ask and they inquire you, why you have come and all. In the same way, the receptors also inquire, like suitable receptor should be there to allow the foreign material. Okay, on the cell surface. Okay, that is called receptors. So that receptor should be needed, and that insulin first will enter into the cell now. Okay, glucose will not enter first. First, insulin will enter into the body cell and make the channel open. I mean, receptor will be allowed to open to uptake the glucose from the nerve cells. Okay, I mean blood cells. So let me go with a clear picture. You could see that in this there is two conditions. So we need to have enough receptors to glucose to enter into the cells. Okay. So in the outer layer you can see the receptors molecules are here. Okay. These are the receptors which can uptake the glucose from the blood. So insulin is must actually. So whenever the insulin is bound to the cell on the surface of the receptors, okay. So it will enter into the cell and allow the glucose molecule to uptake from the blood. Okay, this is a concept. So you can see here glucose molecules are binding to the receptors and getting inside. Okay, I will show you the next picture. So slowly I am showing actually because some teachers doesn't know exactly what is happening, but biology knows, people knows everything. Okay, if insulin is not secreting inside, it will never go. So we can see that some molecules like insulin are just binding to the receptor, then it is allowing the glucose molecule to get inside the cell. Okay, so this is how it works. So once the glucose molecule is entered inside, what will happen? That's the main important thing we can see here. So this is a structure of the outer layer of the cell actually. This is called cell membrane. Okay, and we could see that ball-like structure. These are called the lipid layers. Hydrophobic, the ball-like structure is there, no? That is called hydrophobic region. Okay, outer layer. And inside bottom ball-like structure, inside is also hydrophobic region. And we could see like tail-like structure is called a hydrophilic region. Okay, and we don't have any space in between the cells. They can't enter into any molecule cannot be entered easily. So we need to have some channel in between all the cells. Okay, so these channels allows the molecule to get inside and outside. Okay. So once the insulin is bound to the receptor, this will enter into the cell and makes the channel open for the glucose to enter inside. This is a concept. So once the insulin is entered, the glucose molecules are taken inside and this glucose molecule is getting inside the cell now. Okay, and this glucose molecules, it's like a husk, hutch. Okay, you see the glucose molecules will be there, no? So that should be broken down. Okay, that should be broken down and the energy will be created. So then next, the process is called glycolysis. You can see here the glycolysis is here. Okay, I will show you the glycolysis, what exactly is happening in the cell now. So once the glucose is entered into the cell, we could see that glycolysis. Glycolysis is a step of like metabolic reaction. Metabolic reaction is all the enzymes are involved in the breaking of the glucose molecule. They start hitting the glucose. Okay, it's quite hard actually, and it takes some time to hit. Some particle is moved, and from that we get two type of energy. Okay, that is in triphosphate. Two energy molecule will be released in the glucose molecule. But glucose particle, like all the glucose molecule, is not completely broken down. Okay, only two energy is released in the glycolysis part. Okay, this is done in the inside the cell. Okay, this will be done in the cytoplasm. Generally called cytoplasm. So this glucose molecule gives the two energy. Okay, and this end product will be the pyruvate. So that will be gestational diabetes. And another two types of diabetes you might have heard or not, I don't know exactly. One is neonatal diabetes mellitus and MODY. Okay, this is another type of diabetes. Okay, so let me speak about one by one. Type 1 diabetes. What is type 1 diabetes? Insulin type 1 diabetes mellitus. Okay, it is a dependent actually. It depends upon the insulin. You might have heard the type 1 diabetes. We generally get it in the kids, like at the age of once they get born. Within 40 age, if the insulin is not secreting, we call it as a type 1 diabetes. Why it's happening? How it is happening? Let me study. Okay, in healthy conditions, all the cells, like for example, insulin is also there, blood is also there, and it is bounding to the, getting inside the cells. This is a common phenomena, okay? So glucose are entering into the cell and they are producing energy. This is a normal concept. So in the type 1 diabetes, what happens? We don't, insulin is not secreting completely, it's not secreting at all. Okay, we can see only the glucose molecule in the blood. Okay, and the glucose molecule cannot enter into the cell. I told you what is the concept, because if you have insulin, that makes the glucose molecule to uptake from in the cell. Okay, that was a concept. But here, insulin is missing here. Okay, insulin is not at all there. So glucose cannot be entered into the cell and energy cannot be produced. Okay, so this is the phenomena. So what happens now? So unfortunately, the patient should take insulin from the injection. You might have seen so many people taking injection, right? So nowadays, recombinant DNA technology has come up and insulin has come up, and they are taking insulin through the injections. Okay. So what is the reason? In type 1 diabetes, the insulin is not there, so glucose molecule are staying outside the cell itself. They are not getting inside the cell. So energy is not produced. Okay. This is a concept. So next, what happens when the insulin is not secreting from the pancreas? Insulin is going down. The glucose molecules will be raised, because whatever the food we take, that is digested and the it is converted into glucose molecule. All the glucose molecule will be settled in the blood itself. So hence the glucose molecule will be increased. It will be increased in a higher level. So what is the cause for this type 1 diabetes? Why the insulin is not secreting properly? That is the main reason. We have to know that exactly what is happening there. Okay. So for example, so there is some cells, like for example, we have antibodies like a T cells. Okay. So that is produced in the bone marrow. You know what is bone marrow and all. I don't know how best you know about the science, but we have bone marrow in the bones. From there we get the T cells. Okay. So that T cells acts as antibodies. So sometimes what happens, this, by confusing themselves, they always act against the antigen, foreign material. They don't allow the foreign material to get inside our body. This is a concept. So what happens, this, our own T cells will become, by confusing, they try to destroy our pancreatic cells. Okay, they try to destroy our pancreatic cells. So what is the reason why they are confused and why they are attacking our own beta cells? Okay, this is very important here. Okay, so the reason is, so human leukocyte antigen, this is a concept actually. Human leukocyte antigen is there. So this is a system. Actually what happens, in the cell we have some 46 chromosomes are there. You heard it or not, I don't know. There is 46 chromosomes. Among that, one chromosome, this is one chromosome what I am showing here, they have a particular gene here. Okay, that gene will not have anybody, everybody should not have like that. So some very specific cases in the kids will have this kind of genes. These genes are responsible for the detecting the foreign, our own antibodies. Okay, which acts as an antigen. So these genes are correlated here, and this set of genes are called MHC class 1 molecules. MHC means major histocompatibility cell class 1 molecule. Okay, this codes for specific cells called CD8 cells. Okay, they produce some CD8 cells, this molecule of genes. Okay, and this MHC class 2 molecule, they produce another set of cells called CD4 cells. Okay, understood? Now these genes are responsible for producing some certain cells like CD4 and CD8 cells. Okay, so what happens, our own antibodies and T cells, whatever the CD4 cells and CD8 cells along with this dendritic cell, they combine together and they try to attack our pancreatic cells. You know, pancreas, we have beta cells. This cell will produce the insulin. Okay, this group of cells or clusters of cells are called islets of Langerhans. Okay, so the group of cells of beta cells are called islets of Langerhans. From here we are getting the insulin. So this insulin is destroyed by these antibodies, our own antibodies. Okay, so by confusing, this is one concept. Even in due to the medications, like when we are in kids, we take abnormal like medicines or toxic effects. Due to this also, these antibodies will destroy the beta cells and stop the insulin production. So this condition is called type 1 diabetes. Okay. So what is actually the major symptoms of type 1 diabetes here? Okay. So first one is polyuria, glycosuria, polyphagia, glycosuria, polyuria and polydipsia. These are the 4 different type symptoms we can see in the kids. So for example, let me speak about the polyphagia. Okay, first one. Poly means many, phagia means eating. Okay. So for example, we have glucose. Insulin is not secreting in the blood. Okay, insulin is not secreting, completely absent. We have glucose molecule, more glucose molecule in the blood now. In these conditions, what happens? If we have more glucose molecule, that will be entered into the adipose cells. Adipose means these are the fat cells. Okay, so fat cells in our body that starts breaking down. Okay, and this system is called lipolysis. The breakdown of fat cells is called lipolysis. Okay, and this what happens? This glucose molecule will start breaking the proteins also present in the muscles. Okay, whatever the muscle cells have, that will be broken down. All the proteins will be broken down, and we can see that they feel excess of hunger. They start eating more food. Okay, the people, those who are diabetic, they keep on eating more actually. Hence, it is called polyphagia. Okay. Coming to the glycosuria, what is glycosuria exactly? So glycosuria means like we have blood. Blood, inside the blood we have a huge glucose. Glucose is so dangerous, we can see here. Okay. So what will do? It exactly enter into the kidney now. Okay. So whatever the kidney functions do, it always absorbs and secretes. Whatever we are drinking the water, it is absorbed and secreted through the urine. So inside the kidney we have a functional unit called nephron. So whatever the nephron, this outer part is there, no? This part will be disturbed by glucose. Okay. Hence the filtration will be disturbed and all the glucose molecule will be secreted. So excess of glucose will be secreted in the urine, and this system is called glycosuria. So you can see diabetic patients will be secreting more amount of glucose every half an hour or 1 hour. They keep on going for the washrooms. Okay. So polyuria, you can see that due to the excess of urine, they go for the washrooms. And even due to the dehydration, excess of water is released through the kidney and glucose is released, they feel more thirsty. They feel like having more and more water oftenly. Okay, so the another type of is called diabetes ketoacidosis we call. What is diabetes ketoacidosis? It's a major problem actually. So for example, when the glucose is present in the blood, so it, even this, I told you in the previous slide, I told you lipolysis. The fat is broken down and this fat is converted into fatty acids. That will be entered into the blood. Okay, whatever the free fatty acids are entered into the blood, so these free fatty acids will try to, once the, okay, and every half an hour they check the glucose level, how much it is increased, how much it is decreased. Based on this, we check the diabetes. So one more method is glycosylate hemoglobin, HbA1c. Okay, what is HbA1c means? The red blood cells, in the blood we have a glucose molecules. Okay, that will be attached to the glucose. Okay, even the receptors are not open, if it is not entering into the cell, it stays longer time in the blood cells only. Okay, so then what happens? So this RBC cells lifespan is 120 days, minimum 3 to 4 months. Okay, so when we check the blood, the glucose level will come to know like how much percentage of HbA1c is there, how much long time is staying with the blood will come to